and overcoming challenges. Before giving you an overview maybe of some of the content and also looking to how we will structure today's discussion, let me first thank all of the co-organizers for their energy and ideas and time put into this event. I want to first thank the Slovenian Business and Research Association, the Slovenian Ministry of Defense and the European Defense Agency. And of course, such an event, as timely as it is, as I said, also occurs in the context of the Slovenian presidency of the Council of the European Union. I say it is timely, of course, because a lot of us are fully aware of the fact that already on the table there are a number of defense initiatives which are designed to stimulate European defense innovation and defense industry. We're all familiar, I guess, with the so-called alphabet soup of PESCO, EDF, CARD, CDP, etc., etc. But also looking a bit to the future, we see already on the horizon that we have the strategic compass, which has already had the first draft put on the table, and which hopefully in the future will guide us a bit more when it comes to defense industrial matters and defense innovation. And of course, in that context, the question and position of SMEs is absolutely critical, not least because of the broader context in which this discussion takes place, considering some of the challenges faced globally because of the pandemic and other issues when it comes to critical supply. So I would say there is an awareness at the European level, a growing awareness at the European level, not only when it comes to the strategic dimension of critical supply, but also defense innovation. And I think we will be learning and hearing a lot more about defense innovation in the days, months, and years to come. I should also like to thank each one of the participants who have turned up. I see on my computer that so far we have 107 participants, and I guess that will also increase as the day goes by. We make sure that a few other people get some more coffee, and maybe they will join us in a few minutes, but that's already a fantastic number, I think, for a very, very good debate. Now, just a brief word before I introduce our keynote speakers on the structure of today's event, because we want to try and make it as interactive as possible. So I want to encourage participants, if they have questions or comments, that they please flag their interest in the chat box. And I, as the moderator, will be able to make sure that your question gets asked to each one of our speakers when we have time. I think also the organizers should be applauded for putting together a very interactive approach. So not only will we hear keynote speeches and have a presentation of various different views from institutions and also from industry, but we will also in the middle of the event have a roundtable discussion where we will be able to address, I think, some of the pressing questions that we all have on our minds. And that roundtable discussion is supposed to be as interactive as possible. So I already flag the fact that you should come ready with your thoughts and ideas and challenge a bit the discussions in the room. But we will begin, I think, with two very important opening keynote speeches. And I'm very, very fortunate as a moderator to be able to welcome Mr. Uroš Lampret, who is the State Secretary at the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Slovenia. Mr. Lampret, it's been an honor already working with you on many occasions for different events. You know that I always salute the Slovenian Ministry of Defense for all of the efforts that you've undertaken since or during your presidency, which I think has been very active indeed. And we're very happy that you can join us today to kick off our discussions. After Mr. Lampret has provided his views, then I'm also very, very happy and honored to welcome Mr. Jiří Sedivi, who's the Chief Executive of the European Defense Agency. In fact, a man probably who doesn't need any introduction. But it is very good that you're with us today, Mr. Sedivi, to also give us your thoughts and even impulses for maybe the future direction on defense innovation and also the role of the European Defense Agency in it. We've seen also in the past few days and weeks the growing importance of the European Defense Agency on the question of defense innovation. So I'm very happy that you could be with us today here. So let us start maybe with Mr. Lampret. I hand the floor over to you and looking very much forward to your views. Please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for your kind words and a very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed workshop participants, dear colleagues, it is my honor to welcome you to today's workshop on behalf of the Republic of Slovenia, the member state holding the presidency of the European Council and the co-organizer of the workshop along with the European Commission and Slovenian Business Research Association. Never before has there been this much political will for closer cooperation with small and medium-sized enterprises in the field of defense. Never before has Europe been in a greater need of fresh, innovative and breakthrough ideas for devising its own technological advances, greater strategic autonomy, and lastly, technological progress. Regrettably, never before have we encountered so rapidly changing security environment and emergence of new and evolving hybrid threats, spreading around all levels of our culture, our life, and our safety. COVID-19 pandemics has grimly reminded us of precisely this. Bear in mind that defense, or better yet, military and civilian spheres are interdependent and intertwined. A stable industrial base requires not only a functional internal market, but also guaranteed security of supply and a structured dialogue with defense industry. Increase in strategic autonomy can only be achieved by means of improved innovation and investments into the emerging and state-of-the-art military technology. Inclusion of small and medium-sized enterprises in the defense sector is therefore crucial. Safety is closely associated with the economy and vice versa. If we are to keep up with new challenges, or preferably be at the forefront, fresh and groundbreaking ideas as well as creative mindset is essential. It is precisely the small and medium-sized enterprises capable of rapid changes and ingenious solutions that play a key role in this. This enables even smaller countries, such as Slovenia, where small and medium-sized enterprises are prevalent, to actively and substantially contribute to both national as well as the European technological industrial base. The foregoing provides numerous opportunities for both enterprises and national economy associated with dual use in the fields of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, innovative space technologies, biotechnologies, and technologically advanced energy solutions, to name just a few. The advantages of international cooperation and projects are manifold and provide added value to the final outcome and effects of mutual cooperation. However, international cooperation and projects also pose challenges that are to be considered. Rapid, innovative, and cutting-edge solutions that should be incorporated in new and improved capabilities are required. Enterprises and research organizations are not only ones facing challenges. Ministries, which are traditionally rigid organizations, somewhat unadapted to rapid responses and changes, face similar challenges. Admittedly, rigidness also brings a level of stability that is essential in the defense sector. Therefore, the question that also needs to be addressed is how to deal with this issue efficiently. Political will has been expressed, and there are already numerous defense initiatives in which small and medium-sized enterprises bear a crucial role, namely the Strategic Compass, PESCO, EDF, and innovative initiatives. For the first time in history, European funds are at the disposal for joint defense projects in which the role of small and medium-sized enterprises is at the forefront. With numerous opportunities available, it is my sincere wish that you will be able to comprehensively address them today and try to find a mutually agreed and innovative solutions to our joint challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, allow me to express my deep gratitude to all of you, participants and speakers, for your willingness and effort to cooperate and be here with all of us today. Please accept my sincere appreciations also to the co-organizers. Thank you, and I wish you a fruitful and a thoughtful workshop.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. State Secretary, for those opening words. And I think already you put a number of the issues on the table that we will indeed be discussing today. I picked up ideas such as security of supply, autonomy, dual use, investments, and you're also good to outline some of the challenges facing organizations as well, both governmental and industrial. I think that was also a challenge to us as well today to meet your point about trying to come up with innovative solutions, and hopefully we will be able to meet that challenge today in our discussion. So thank you very much for being with us, and good luck with the rest of your day. I now want to turn, if possible, to the Chief Executive, Mr. Sidivi. Please, the floor is yours, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and good morning, colleagues. It's a great pleasure to be with you today, even though only virtually, and indeed I'm pleased also to be meeting again in this role with my good friend Uroš Lampret, and also thanks to Slovenian presidency for a lot of good activities. And indeed, you said, Uroš, that ministries of defense are sometimes a bit inflexible or rigid organizations, but I should say that at least and from our experience with your presidency in the area of RTI, your Ministry of Defense is very vibrant, actually, in that respect. Now, I would like to say that I consider it crucial to maintain a good working relationship with industry, large and small, research and technology organizations, and academia. And I think it is even more important now, these days, when things are moving fast in the field of European defense at large, but also indeed in defense innovation in particular. We are facing a challenging, rapidly changing and challenging environment. The consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic are still severely impacting all sectors of society, including defense, and the escalating competition between great powers, so to speak, and especially US and China, is now all-encompassing, military, economic, and technological. So we are actually in the midst of a technological race for the future, I would say. It's a race for the future dominance. Who is defining technological standards today will dominate the future tomorrow. And indeed, for the European Union, the choice is I would say, sharp, vital, and simple. Defense innovation or defense irrelevance. The current situation is also highlighting existing vulnerabilities as well as new challenges, and especially, as Uroš also mentioned, related to supply chain dependencies, the dual use nature of technologies of defense companies, as well as working practices that needs to be addressed in order to ensure resilience of the defense sector and while continuing to support EU defense cooperation. Last but not least, this is also a challenge to our, I would say, mindset in terms of how we've been used to do business. Now, at the same time, we see a rather positive trend still in terms of increasing defense budgets, although we cannot say that repercussions, or I would say fiscal repercussions of the pandemic are over. And at the same time, we have also now established the whole set of instruments, PESCO card, European Defence Fund. So this together creates uniquely, I would say, a favorable environment or conditions for strengthening the European defence technological industrial base. Now, the common EU level priorities in the capability development plan, which is our key instrument, is now goes now across the activities in those instruments that I mentioned. We have successfully completed both the first CART report and the PESCO strategic review last year, and now we are launching the very first annual program of the European Defence Fund. And this is something that really creates, as I said, unique, coherent framework, which just not facilitates but also incentivizes defense cooperation among our member states and their industries. Now, we in the European Defence Agency are fully committed to further enhance our engagement and dialogue with European industry at all levels. Small and medium-sized enterprises at the same time are the backbone of the EU economy and play a crucial role also in defense sector, being both subcontractors or in the defense supply chains or direct suppliers to ministries of defense. And they are also key actors when it comes to innovation, and especially startups, which are critical subsegment of SMEs, because they are often able to rethink established practices and cut through traditional industry boundaries. So cooperation and cross-border partnership are becoming increasingly important concepts, and sometimes even the necessary precondition to be part of these initiatives, and especially now tapping on the funds. So while this trend represents a unique opportunity for increased market integration, it also poses a number of challenges to defense industries, and in particular, small and medium enterprises are often still confronted with traditional market barriers, such as limited access to information that can prevent them to know about available support instruments or entering newly established European supply chains, or limited also approach to the funds, to the capital. Over the years, European Defence Agency has developed a lot of specific activities focusing on small and medium enterprises, in particular to raise awareness of business opportunities, identify and share member states and industries' best practices and lessons learned at European, regional and national levels, as well as to develop and implement in close dialogue with European Defence Agency stakeholders policies and actions to support defence-related SMEs, and last but not least, to identify programmatic and funding tools of interest for defense-related SMEs and clusters. Currently, our approach towards SMEs is centered around priorities that aim at maximizing their involvement in research and technology activities and development of defense capabilities. We have a lot of participation amongst SMEs to our capability and technology groups, CapTechs. Those are hubs for collaboration that bring together experts from government, industry and academia, and are moderated by EDA. As a part of EDA's effort to stimulate defense innovation and provide non-traditional defense stakeholders, not least SMEs, with an opportunity and encouragement to showcase their know-how, we organize EDA Defense Innovation Prize since 2018. Soon at our annual conference, 7th December, we will award this year's prize. The theme is the human-machine interface, and last year we had for the annual prize, I think about more than a dozen of applications. This year we have almost 30, so the interest is growing, very encouraging. Furthermore, EDA's efforts also include the development of concrete tools such as identity funding or business-to-business platform, and you will be informed in detail about these opportunities later. This will conclude actually my remarks, but I should react to what you said, Daniel, in the beginning. You mentioned the discussions about reinforcing the role of EDA in defense innovation. And I should say that actually this was the main theme of our steering board ministerial level on the 16th of November. And ministers were discussing essentially three options that might be launched for reinforcing. And if I say reinforcing, it means that we have been already in this business of innovation, but there is a growing interest in using EDA as a sort of a niche organization, as intergovernmental forum where capability prioritization, capability development, research, technology, innovation projects, and a lot of cooperation with industry intersects. So this makes us a unique organization for this matter, and indeed focusing on defense innovation proper. So three options. First, to enhance innovation price, to enhance our networking, to enhance what we've been already essentially doing. So that's I would say the soft option. As far as I would say more ambitious option of establishing an innovation hub, means a hub for networking. This is also mentioned in the current draft of strategic compass. I hope that it will be mentioned there even in the final draft and more strongly. The hub hub also could include actually the aspects of testing and experimentation, plus indeed, all these activities that I mentioned, the monitoring trends, proposing projects, networking, exchange of best practices, getting together innovation players, and especially supporting non-traditional small, medium enterprises in that respect. So this is our ambition. We'll be already delivering something during next year, and I hope that towards the end, this time next year, actually, we will be much further on, and indeed also in terms of getting further small, medium enterprises and innovation actors on our board. So with that, and sorry for getting a bit over the time, but I really wanted to share this with you. I can only thank you for this conference, for this forum, and wishing you all the best in your conversations during this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Sedivi, and no problem at all for taking a few more minutes to outline indeed the future path, I think, of the agency when it comes to defense innovation. I think you outlined very clearly how important innovation already is to the agency, but how much more important it will become. I also want to thank you very much for putting the question of defense innovation in a strategic context. I was very struck with what you said about we have to innovate or we become irrelevant. And you stressed indeed that we find ourselves a bit in the middle of a tech race, if we can call it this. That is very, very important, I think, and needs to be kept in mind when we discuss even the nitty-gritty of defense innovation. We know how technical it can get, but sometimes it's important to lift our heads up and see the broader picture. So thank you very much for that. And also to underline, in fact, that I think many of us are pretty looking forward to the annual conference that will be coming very, very soon, where indeed I'm sure you will touch upon some of these issues as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Sedivi, for being with us. Now I would like to turn the discussion, if possible, to two colleagues from the European Defence Agency and the European Commission, who will take us in a bit more detail, a bit more depth about some of the processes or strategies they have for dealing or managing EU funding and also the defense sector. And I'm very happy to welcome Pierre Di Torro, who's a policy officer at the European Defence Agency. And Pierre, you will be speaking about the agency's work in supporting access to EU funding for the defense sector. So very good morning to you and welcome. And then we also have Paul Anciot, who comes from DG DEFIS at the European Commission. And he will be talking about guiding SME opportunities and also looking at the offers and opportunities offered by the European Defence Fund and through some of the other Commission, let's say, tools and networks that are available. So I'm very happy to have both of you with us this morning, gentlemen. I should also stress as well that I hope after these two presentations that there will be a few minutes available for questions from the audience. So please, I remind everyone, and there are 145 people I see now in the virtual room, If you have questions or comments to be made after the two presentations that you hear, please let me know, and I will be very happy to try and get you in on the conversation. But let's not waste any more time. Mr. Di Toro, I give you the floor, and looking very much forward to hearing the agency's work.
Many thanks, Daniel, as moderator of today's event, for giving me the floor. And good morning, everyone. I would also like to thank the organizers for inviting me once again, to address our dear friends in Slovenia. And of course, this is a real pleasure, to continue this collaboration from the European Defence Agency side as a whole and from my side particularly. I would start by sharing my screen. And simply as a starting point to have the European Defence Agency homepage. Why? Because I want to guide you through our service, our online service for defense stakeholder, supporting their possible access to funding and financing at European level. What I would invite you to do is under the What We Do menu of the European Defence Agency homepage, simply to click on EU funding. And by clicking on EU funding, you will get to the page that we call European Funding Gateway for Defense. Now, the key aspect here is, first of all, to provide everyone with a chance to build autonomous know-how in terms of possible EU funding for defense at European level. As a matter of fact, you will have here the list of 26 funding windows that are partially or fully accessible to defense stakeholders, including ministries of defense, defense-related industry, research and technology organizations, academia, and so on and so forth. Now, this is an interactive web page, okay? Because you might want to know what can be funded, okay, under each funding window. And then you just go under the select criterion and you click on the what, and immediately you see that everything will change by providing you in very few lines the essential information about what can be funded. Similarly, you might wonder, am I eligible to access? Then you would like to click on who, and immediately you will get the information about who can apply for each of these funding windows, and so on and so forth, about the when, which typology of funding is available, where is it available, the size, and so on and so forth. But this is really, let's say, to transfer know-how, to share our know-how in this respect, and in order to have you building your autonomous know-how. However, for many small and medium-sized enterprises, okay, it remains, of course, challenging to deforest this range of opportunities. And this is why we have invented this unique software at European level, which is called Identifunding. From the same web page, you can click on Start Identifunding. It will take less than 1 minute to register and to get a personalized confidential link, which means that your experience under this software will remain fully confidential. No one will be able to trace what you are submitting under this software. How it will appear under its first web page? A simple question, because the software is based on 10 simple questions, a 10-minute experience, where you may here insert the key features of any of your project idea for which you are looking for funding, the key features, the key characteristics of your activity for which you are looking for funding or financing at European level. You might be, for example, an SME, but of course, we also include other company sizes or even clusters, governmental non-for-profit institutions, or you may also be an individual researcher at university. But let's go, for example, with SME, and you start experiencing this tool by moving, I opened the tool too early this morning, okay? And you go to the second question, which is, again, I mean, a user-friendly question, because the overall experience must be very simple for everyone, okay? By delivering instead, I mean, a quite high-level outcome. You will choose the country where you are. You may have or not specific regions that are relevant or not. In the case of Slovenia, we can stick to the national level here, and the outcome would be fully meaningful. And you keep ahead, moving to the next question. The next question will address the state of progress of your project. Let's suppose it has not started yet, because of course, if it is finished, I mean, no funding would be available, but it can be also started to some extent. But let's move ahead by supposing that you have in your mind a project idea and you want to understand if there is possible funding at European level. Then you should share if you go on your own or you're also, or maybe leading a consortium in this respect. And let me say that if you're leading a consortium, you may also make use of the EDA's B2B platform that will be later on discussed by another colleague, Marian Savu, at the European Defence Agency. Now, what type of funding are you seeking? You may want to go for grants, or maybe looking for a loan, or maybe someone investing with you in your equity, okay? Let's suppose that we go for the three of them, just to keep it today very open in terms of experiencing the tool. You're an SME, you're looking for any opportunity you may have. Sixth question, what amount of funding are you looking for? Let's suppose between 150,000 euros and 1 million. Okay, you have different ranges here. We move ahead with the question saying, where is, I mean, the project, I mean, or activity for which you're seeking funding developed, taking place in terms of its regional or national or cross-border or pan-European dimension. Since in EDA we work for collaboration at most, I mean, I would go for this choice, but as you can see, the tool would cover any situation, even also purely national or subnational projects. The next question addresses the nature of your project based on very simple and essential main categories: RT&D and development project, or maybe equipment and infrastructure, or skills, capacity building, I mean, training and learning, or simply working capital, okay, for your overall company financial capacity. If you have a project based on research and technology and development, you would get this specific additional question here, which is related to the technology readiness level that you want to achieve when using European funding. Of course, the technology readiness level are explained here, quickly described based on a specific regulation that we have at European level, which is under the Horizon Europe and already was under the Horizon 2020 program. I would go, for example, for a TRL 6 because you aim at looking for funding because you want your technology demonstrated in a relevant environment. And then you have the question that relates to the fields, the areas, let's say the sectorial approach, okay? You may have a project that does not relate to any of these sectors, you would click on none of the above, or maybe a project related to environment, energy, and even, because multiple answers are allowed, a project that includes aspects related to the digital dimension for environment. And here already you get to your initial results. As you can see, the tool very quickly is performing a full scanning about the 25 funding and financing windows that are below the tools based on the relevant regulation and also their work programs in order to deliver a first list of intermediate results. I might say that usually it is way faster, but this is my connection probably from my place. It is taking a few seconds before moving to the next page. In case of issues, no worries, we have a plan B, okay, but it is working because we also have saved, of course, an offline version of this demonstration that we have this morning. As you can see, we move from about 25 funding windows to a lower number of them. You can click on each of them and you would get the relevant details about each funding program and how to move ahead. But what we suggest is to refine this first level of results by moving to few additional questions before concluding your experience with the identifying. Because in some specific cases here, we might still say it depends on how you will answer to the following questions, if you can really consider yourself as being eligible for this intermediate list of results. We keep the intermediate list of results on the right of your screen. And since LIFE, which is one EU program, funding opportunities related to the environment, appeared in the previous list of intermediate results, we are asking you if you really fall within one of the following sub-programs of the LIFE program. Let's suppose that your project is related to circular economy. And we move to the next question then. And once again, we will address another intermediate outcome. Now the European Defence Fund. Here we have the stable list of categories of action that are encompassed by the European Defence Fund. Then you may know whether you will have or not an opportunity under the specific calls that would come up already based on this initial screening. Then, of course, we will all wait for the specific calls for proposals. But let's suppose that in coherence to the answer we already provided, you would say, well, I might be interested in the opportunities under energy resilience and environmental transition that are funded by the European Defence Fund. And we keep moving ahead in order to fine-tune our search. Now, this is a delicate question, Horizon Europe, because Horizon Europe, you cannot use funding for applications increasing the military capacity of armed forces. You should first go for what we may say are other applications, and only after the conclusion of the project funded by Horizon Europe, you might go for increasing the military capacity of armed forces. But if we suppose that you want to immediately increase the military capacity of armed forces with your project, then you will see that from the list on the right side, the opportunities under Horizon Europe will now disappear when we move to the next question, because you are excluding this opportunity. Now, based on your answers, you might have a chance also under EDA's ad hoc, category A or category projects, under the work of the CAPTEX that the Chief Executive of the European Defence Agency mentioned during his introduction this morning. But if you suppose, because you have the whole list of all domains we are working on at EDA here, but if you cannot find your way here, of course, also this opportunity would fall. Now, let's say that in this respect, we keep being interested in the opportunities that also EDA offers in terms of energy and environment. And we move ahead to the next question, and we are, close to conclude our experience with anti-funding. Digital Europe, a relevant EU program, that was right now born, under this new multi-annual framework 2021-2027. But you must fall within one of the followings. If none of the above would be, matching the essential characteristics of the project at the end that you have in mind, then of course Digital Europe would go out of your list here. European Structural Investment Funds, I mean, this is the dedicated web page, I mean, concerning Slovenia, because we have more than 250 web pages only addressing this stage of the identity funding, one for each of the relevant regions that we have in Europe under the so-called smart specialization strategy. If none of the above would fit with your project, you would exclude European structural investment funds. And you're now done, essentially. These are just statistical questions saying, would you consider applying for funding, financing based on your result? You may say maybe yes, but maybe I need to apply with professional technical assistance. It doesn't change, I mean, it doesn't impact. And you have finished. As you can see, a very short, friendly experience that we have provided in order to reach out at most defense-related stakeholders. And you get the final result here, also a dedicated and personal email in this respect. You have all the relevant links here in order to explore further. An email that is useful also to contact EDA in this respect. And I would conclude just by saying that this tool has now been fully renovated and enhanced, as you can see, in order to match the new opportunities that we have since 2021 at European level. But during its past 2 years of life, it has been already used by hundreds and hundreds of defense stakeholders in all member states, 70% of them from industry, nearly all primes and largest defense-related companies in Europe, and more than 200 SMEs. Then after, I mean, of course, this morning event, I mean, I would invite you to explore this tool, to use it at most, because
Oui, bonjour Sarah, vous allez bien? Je suis en train de suivre
your initial access to
fiche
European
européenne de
funding.
défense. Attendez, j'espère qu'il
Based on this, I mean, my presentation is concluded. Many thanks, I mean, to the chairman and to the audience for its attention.
Thank you very much, Pierre, for that walkthrough. I think that was very useful indeed. And I already see that there was some kind comments in the chat, and also the link to identity funding has also been shared for people to further explore. So thank you so much for that. I think that was very, very useful indeed. Paul, if I could turn to you now, I would very much like to hear from the Commission side about some of the opportunities and the support that you offer as well. And then hopefully after we've heard from Paul, we can have a few minutes, maybe if there are any real pressing questions to come back to both of our speakers to ask. So Paul, I give you the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and a good morning to all. So I'm just starting my presentation in a few seconds, and I guess it should be visible by now. So thank you very much for this little introduction. I'm very happy to be here in this online event. And with my presentation, what I would like to do is give you an answer to 3 possible questions. First of all, what are the key elements of the European Defence Fund, which is a quite new funding tool, and some of the people online may not be very familiar with it so far. What makes it attractive to SMEs, and how are we helping SMEs to find their way to the opportunities offered by the European Defence Fund? So basically, just a few words on the context, because you know very well that the European Defence Fund did not come out of the blue. There is a whole range of milestones, starting from what President Juncker declared on defense back in 2015 to the global strategy that was launched a little bit later, and then the Commission Action Plan on Defense in 2016. Before, let's not forget the commitment taken by the heads of state and government and leaders of the EU institutions in 2017 when they met in Rome and committed that more should be done in terms of cooperating on defense. And all this built up to the launch of the Precursor Programs, on which I will say a few words in the next slide, and then the, let's say, adoption of the EDF regulation. The Precursor Programs, or pilot programs, if you wish, were very important for the Commission because it helped us to test some mechanisms and to draw some lessons before the fully fledged EDF was launched. And you first of all had the preparatory action on defense research, which ran from 2017 to 2019, had a budget of 90 million euros, and in the end, as you can see, 18 projects were awarded. This was then followed by the European Defence Industrial Development Programme, or EDIDP, with a budget of 500 million euros from 2019 till 2020, and which resulted in the award of 44 projects. Now, then we had the launch of the European Defence Fund as such earlier this year. So now we have nearly 8 billion euros for the next 7 years to be spent on research and development. I will just highlight some of the key principles of the European Defence Fund. First of all, one of the main objectives is obviously that it's there to support collaborative and cross-border projects in research and development. And this is now new in contrast to the precursor programs that I mentioned. The research and development windows are integrated into one program. And when we talk about research, we really talk here about research with an exclusive focus on defense applications with a TRL up to, let's say, 4 or 5. Whereas for the development part, we are talking about a TRL ranging from 5 to 8. It's quite essential for the EDF to be inclusive, meaning that it should offer fair chances to member states of all sizes and companies of all sizes. The support to the innovation capacity, that dimension is important as well. I think it's reflected through its support to SMEs, but also if you look at, for example, the budget dedicated to the disruptive technologies, that's also an element which shows this important feature. Another feature, which is probably typical for a program like European Defence Fund, in contrast to many other programs, obviously, is that here we're talking about demand being driven by the member states. And that is being reflected, for example, in the fact that when you look specifically at development actions, in a number of cases that has to be based on common requirements. You have the co-funding aspect by member states. So all this show you that this is a specific feature of this program. Another element which is specific is, of course, that there are the security-based conditions and the fact that we have built in an ethical screening and ethical assessment. Just a few words then on the eligible entities, because here we're basically talking about consortia that have at least 3 legal entities established in at least 3 member states and associated countries. Now, associated countries in practice comes down to Norway. And as a basic condition, we are talking about entities that are established in the Union, Norway, and that are not controlled by third countries. Can you imagine situations whereby the entities are established in the Union or Norway, but where there is a certain control? Yes, but then certain conditions have to be respected in relation to the security and defense interest of the Union and the member states. So here you see, for example, cannot be any risk in the ability to perform the action. It's the kind of security of supply dimension. The sensitive information cannot be accessible to third country entities, and the IPR needs to remain in the EU. So a whole set of guarantees in that case needs to be provided for. And the third scenario, can you imagine companies outside of the Union to be involved in the EDF? Yes, but first of all, the same conditions that I just mentioned need to be fulfilled. And on top of that, there will be no money flowing from the EDF in that case to those entities. Then also in terms of funding rate, so basically the funding rate will really depend on the type of activity we're talking about here in your project or your activity. If it's research, it's pretty straightforward because then it's 100%. If it's a development action, well, it really will depend on the type of action, as you can see on the screen. For studies, for example, it's 90%, design 65%, prototype 20%, but there is a whole system of bonuses. For example, if your project happens to be a PESCO project, you can get a bonus, and there is a bonus foreseen for a certain degree of participation of SMEs or cross-border participation of SMEs and the participation of mid-caps. Now, the maximum bonus is 35%. So it depends on if you're lucky, for example, and are in a situation that you can benefit from a number of bonuses, your funding rate for studies will go up to maximum 100%, design the same thing, and for prototype, it will be capped to maximum 55%. Now, I will not go into any details in terms of the work program that was adopted just before summer and which was followed by the calls. You see the 15 main categories on the screen and the 23 different calls for proposals, which, as you know, are still open until the 9th of December. I just want to show this slide because if you look at the variety of the topics and the categories that are being mentioned here, I can see sort of the classical defense topics like air, naval, and ground combat, for example, but you see a whole series of other categories, including medical response, the sensors, the cyberspace, digital transformation, energy, materials and components, but you also have the disruptive technologies calls and the open calls for SMEs. What this shows, according to me, is that this is offering opportunities not only to SMEs that are already well established into defense supply chains, but also a high number of innovative SMEs that are maybe now working still on the civil side, but that have interesting technologies and solutions to offer to the defense community. I just want to pay a few moments attention, of course, to the open calls for SMEs in view of today's topic. As you can see, it breaks down into a research component and a development component. Several actions can be funded there, but there is a maximum of 4 million euro per action. What is maybe interesting is the feature that some business coaching is provided here. So this means that those SMEs that will be beneficiaries in those calls can get the support of some coaches that will help them if they're a research project to go from research to development phase, if it's the development project to go from development part to the market in the end. You see also on your right side that if we're talking about a research component, also research organizations can take part, which is not the case for the development part. Now, what I've tried to demonstrate is that there are a number of incentives built into the EDF program that should attract SMEs, that should be beneficial to SMEs. I mentioned the specific bonus for SMEs in the context of the funding rate. It's also taken into account into the award criteria. I mentioned the open calls for SMEs, but for me, it's important to make the point that also all the other calls will really help SMEs to connect with the wider defense community. Take, for example, the outcome of the EDIDP in 2019. 37% of all the entities involved in the projects were SMEs. And if we zoom into that particular figure, 25% of these SMEs were to be found in the SME call, but 75% of the SMEs were dispersed in all the other calls. So also all the other calls, not only the open calls, are very relevant and potentially interesting for SMEs. Now, we have been launching and developing a number of actions to guide SMEs to different funding opportunities, to help them with building consortia and matchmaking. So I will speak a little bit about that now, how we use both existing and new networks to achieve that. The first network is, let's say, the largest network that many of you already may know from different contexts. It's the Enterprise Europe Network, which is present in more than 60 countries worldwide. And who are the Enterprise Europe Network, let's say, partners or contact points? Those are basically business support organizations. So we're talking about chambers of commerce, innovation agencies, enterprise agencies. It can even be the technology transfer department of a university, SME associations, and so on. And they have teams within their organizations that are dedicated to the Enterprise Europe Network services. What kind of services is the Enterprise Europe Network providing to SMEs? You have a whole block which I would call internationalization of SME activities. And one main element there is their large, very dynamic database, which contains thousands of profiles from companies that are looking for business partners, that are looking for technology partners that can be used to flag up if you have an interest in forming a consortia for projects. The Enterprise Europe Network is regularly organizing matchmaking events across Europe. They are facilitating company missions. So they are setting up and preparing SMEs to visit other companies, and those can include primes in other countries. And then, as you can see from the second block, there is a whole advisory function where they provide advice, for example, on EU laws and standards. And bear in mind that this kind of service is free of charge. But also, as you can see, innovation, one central theme today, is an essential part of their services. You can turn to the Enterprise Europe Network people to get information on access to finance and funding, even personalized support to help shape your innovation potential. From our side, I think we have tried to make lots of efforts to spend a lot of time on spreading the word in first instance that, yes, the Enterprise Europe Network can also provide these services to defense companies, because I've met a number of companies in the past which were quite uncertain about this, who said, well, yes, but this network is not providing any services to defense companies. Well, I can reassure you they can also welcome defense SMEs and provide them with all these services. And from our side, we have been providing information sessions to the different partners of this network so that they are a bit better equipped to deal also with your particular questions. And we work a lot with the sector group of aeronautics, space and defense. You can reach out to them as well. They have, for example, supported a number of innovative SMEs that were working, let's say, on civil side of the economy, to find defense community, including the EDA CapTechs that were mentioned by my EDA colleague a couple of times already. Now I would like to turn to another network, which is, say, a DEFIS managed network, the network of the European defense-related regions, which exists since 2016. It was brought into life because we thought it's a good idea to bring different regional organizations and clusters together so that they can exchange information on how to your regional development. This is important for many reasons, and one reason being that if you want to benefit from the cohesion funds, in particular regional development fund, you need to build that strategy. So that's an important reason why this network was brought into life. But we also noticed very quickly that if you bring regional organizations and clusters together, they are, of course, excellent intermediaries towards SMEs. So if we provide them with lots of information on the EDF and other types of funding, they can pass the word, they can spread the word to the SMEs. And as was mentioned in the European Defence Action Plan, of course, it's an important vehicle to promote regional clusters of excellence. Now, the European Network of Defence-related regions currently counts 39 organizations from 17 member states, including 2 Slovenian organizations. An important vehicle is our website, because it's like a platform where the different members can get some visibility through their profiles. You have a news section, you have a section with information on European Defence Fund, but also other related funding that can be important, like the ERDF that I mentioned before. And this information is also largely also available to any SME that wants to visit our website. But really the drivers of this network are the different events that are thematic of nature, that we organize in the regions, together with regions, and where B2B matchmaking is very important. And I really want to highlight the 4 events that we organized very recently, because it will give you an idea about the kind of activities that we are doing under this umbrella. We had one in France very recently where we talked a lot about the needs for drones, and in particular the smaller drones, the counter UAS threats in defense operations and drone swarms, and this was organized together with the cluster in Normandy. And as you can see, also the Enterprise Europe Network played a role there to facilitate the matchmaking. This was followed by an event organized with our Swedish ENDR member the soft cluster, where we focused on all the kinds of opportunities offered by the topic of advanced materials for defense applications and related funding that is available at European level. And that also, that event, you could see the participation of different companies ranging from very small to very large. The third event that took place recently focused on another important issue, which is more about the skills that are needed for our aerospace and defense ecosystem. And so we explored a lot during that event from a knowledge triangle perspective. What are the challenges and opportunities for cross-border cooperation for skills? And there were many interesting examples of a good cooperation between companies and universities, which is very important in view of the speed of emerging technologies that is the case in these days. And the final event that took place in Denmark then focused on the soldier of the future and the related sort of connection between defense, space, and cyber technologies. This was organized with the Sensec cluster, and there was also an important participation of the Danish Defense Procurement Agency to talk also about innovative ways in dealing with industry. Then the final network that I want to highlight is actually a completely new network. It's the National Focal Points for the EDF. It's a network that is in the process of being built up. These are nominated by the member states and associated countries and also supported by them, comparable to some extent with the national contact points under the Horizon program, to which some of you may be more familiar than this one. And it will have similar tasks as the national contact point in the sense that they will reach out to stakeholders and provide information to potential applicants. So all kinds of stakeholders are welcome, SMEs and others, to get more information and to go and to reach out to your national focal point for this service. I will give you the link at the end of my presentation. Many of the national focal points, many member states are already active, and their contact details are published on that website. From our side, we will of course support the networking between them and facilitate the exchange of best practices and help them with some training so that they are optimally equipped to deal with all the different questions. And then the final sort of element I want to highlight in terms of outreach activities is that, as you will have seen, we are organizing these info days. So usually immediately after the launch of a call, there is an info day at European level. The last one was quite successful in terms of participation. And all the materials are then also available to everyone on the link that you see. Many of the questions that you may have concerning EDF and the calls, I think you can find the answers there. And these kind of events are often replicated at the national level. You see member states very often taking the initiative to have info days at a national level, which we support. We are always happy to provide our expertise at these events. So keep an eye out in the future for these events as well in your own member state. So this is what I wanted to say. Here you can find links to many of the initiatives that I mentioned, and I'm turning back to you, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Paul. Again, that was very, very rich and great to hear and learn more about the Commission's initiatives in this regard. I can also say that I was very, very fortunate indeed to listen in and participate in the future soldier conference that you mentioned. And indeed, I can confirm that this is indeed very rich and important type of event as well to raise that awareness. Thank you so much. I also see from the chat room that the presentations will be shared on the SBRA website. So that means that all of the links that you just shared, Paul, in your presentation shall also be available there. So thank you so much. In the interests of time, we're a bit over time for these panel sessions. I see that maybe there is already one question that I would like to come back to Paul on, if possible, and then I will move into the next session pretty rapidly. I'm not sure if you can read the question in the chat box, Paul, but it was about the figure you showed about the 25% of SMEs in the SME call and the 75% in the other call, which happened to be SMEs. There was a question there about why was it only 25% of SMEs in the SME call? Maybe you can just clarify a bit that number.
Yeah. Of course, it's probably a misunderstanding. It's not only 25% SMEs in the SME call, because that would make not a lot of sense. What I just wanted to highlight that is, I first said that the percentage of SMEs in total for the EDIDP 2019 was 37. So 37% of all entities there were SMEs. But if you zoom in on those SMEs, you see that 25% came from the SME call. So the SME call provided, let's say, that percentage of all the SMEs taking part in the EDIDP 2019, and all the rest came from the other calls. So definitely the SME calls was full of SMEs. There is no misunderstanding, or should be no misunderstanding about that. It was just referring to the overall SME entities that took part in the EDIDP 2019 call. So sorry if I confused people maybe on that one.
Thank you very, very much for that clarification, Paul. And I'd like to move now into the next session, if possible, where we'll be looking in a bit more detail at the experiences and views of industrial actors and partnerships. And I'm very, very happy to welcome three speakers who will guide us until the break at about 11 o'clock today with their views and experiences. And let me introduce them. First on my list is Mr. Denis Rozaj. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, sir. You're the managing director of Gardiaris, and you'll be looking and talking about the best practices of your entity and some of the guidelines that you might want to share in relation to EU projects. Welcome to you. Second on my list is Matija Gyazar. Again, I'm very sorry if I mispronounce your name. You're the president of the steering committee for the Slovenian Energy and Environmental Partnership in Defense. A very good morning to you, and you will be speaking about energy and environmental challenges in defense. And then last but certainly not least on my list is Mr. Jean-Philippe Scherer, who is the head of future programs at Airbus. And he will be discussing with us Airbus-led defense industry consortia and also SME engagement in that context, which I think is very important for our discussion. So without any delay, I would like to hand over the floor immediately to Mr. Rozaj, and looking forward to hearing your experiences. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, and Mr. Fjord, thank you for the introduction. Hope you can see my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, good. Just to start directly, a couple of words about Gardiaris. We are an SME, as we all know, which is focused on the training and simulation. This is also why we have the slogan, which is called "Train the Brain." And the point is that when we do our products, we focus on the out-of-the-box approach on the training. Training is nothing new. Training is around since the time of the man. But the point is that today the equipment is getting more and more, let's say, expensive, more and more complicated, and the time to train on the equipment gets shorter and shorter. And this is why we actually decided to build our simulators and our products around the idea of...
Sorry to interrupt, Dennis. Could you please put your presentation on full screen? There should be the button at the bottom of your presentation. I'm very sorry to interrupt you. It's just to put it on full screen so everyone can see it properly. That's it.
It's working?
You need to click the button just to the left of the percentage increase. Can you see it at the bottom right-hand corner? That's the full screen button. That's the one.
Now it's working?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry.
I thought it was a duplicated screen. Okay, cool. So these are a couple of our products which range, I'm not going to lose too much time on those, which range actually from small arms trainers to car driving training in synthetic environments, remote weapon simulators, anti-tank, anti-aircraft weapons, and so on and so forth. But as I said, we do it a little bit different. We try to be different. We want to be innovative. And when I want to express a couple of key points which are necessary from my point of view for the SMEs, there are two types of key points to be recognized on the market. One are the external key points, which means that you have to have a range of products to be interesting enough for big guys who are participating on EDA calls and different similar calls to attract you, to invite you to the consortium. You have to have worldwide customers, because this actually means that you have a product that is being used and that you have the right strategy in building your technology. And you have to have a market recognition as well. On the internal point of the key points, it's, from my point of view, it's really important to have a sort of proprietary technology. You have to own some know-how, which is unique to you, which is something that you as an SME have, and then through this you can actually extrapolate the innovativeness, and it's always good to have these solutions also patented. And when we look at the timeline on getting on the radar, I call it like this, is the message that I would like to convey is that you need to be out there. Now, here are a couple of examples that from our company on the projects that we participated since 2018. So, for example, in 2018, we participated in one NATO MSG project, which was a think tank about new standards which would enhance the high-level architecture standards for the training and simulation in terms of dynamic terrain and dynamic weather. As you can see, there was quite a big group with Thales, Boeing, NLR, and the other guys participating. The other project which we also participated is the CBRN SAS in the mid of 19, which was a project which was focused on cyber threats. And then, as you can see, we also participated in EU Federated Battle Lab project, which was actually a preparation project which went on the EDIDP call. As you can see, here, some of the names, some of the logos of some companies are repeating. So some companies are out there as we are. Then there was a TechUp project, which also you can see some of the logos of some of the companies repeating. And there was a FIST. And this is a project that basically, based on our experience, we decided to go out and to be the lead of the consortia of the SMEs and make the to go on the call. And we were quite successful with this project. And I will say a couple of more words later on that. But the message here is also not just to be out there. You need to be also a valuable partner. You need to bring something to the table. Depending on the project, depending on the size of the consortia, of course, this differs, is different from time to time. But the point is that nobody really wants to have a partner who is just sitting there and waiting for crumbs to fall from the table. A couple of words about the FIST project. Basically is a compendium of a couple of products of a couple of companies from Slovenia, Austria, and Spain, which are now merged into something innovative, which actually gears towards the new paradigm of training, of indoor training on a tactical level of soldiers which are on foot or part of the infantry fighting vehicles. What I want to convey here as a message is that if you're out there, you will gain knowledge, you will gain recognition, and you will gain also I call it the guts You know, you will gain the courage to do the projects on yourself, to put together a consortium, you know, and try to get the funding, because the political will is there. EDA is in place, is really well functioning. The tools are there. The tools are really great. And the funds are there. So everything is there. Now it's only about the SMEs, about the companies, about the innovative approach of the SMEs, and about the guts to go out there and to try to get the funding for the ideas, for the innovation that we might have. And that was the key message. I'm looking forward to answer some questions if there would be some.
Thanks so much, Dennis. That was very clear and very sharp. Thank you so much for that. And again, I think those presentations will be available online for further reflection by the participants. So thanks so much, Dennis. I also, by the way, before I move to Mattia and encourage him to speak, just to flag the fact that there is quite an interesting conversation going on in the chat room with some very good questions. I would just like to thank the dear colleague Inga Kurpens from DG Defis, who is answering many of them, but we can also perhaps pick them up, I guess, in the roundtable discussion as well, because I think they're very important questions. So thanks for that. Mattia Ghiazar, I turn to you now. The floor is yours, and looking forward to hearing about energy and environmental challenges in the defense sector. Please, the floor is yours.
Daniel, thank you for giving me a word. Do you see the screen? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me a word, also for inviting me to have the opportunity to present our view on the greening defense challenges. And of course, I would like first to give some words about me. Basically, I'm coming from TECES, which is 20 years old Slovenian cluster on the energy sector, and of course we have a lot of experience on the topics of energy related, let's say, energy consumption, production, conversion, and so on, as you will probably see. And of course, in the following presentation, I will focus on how Slovenian stakeholder, especially Slovenian civilian stakeholder, and especially with the support of Slovenian Ministry of Defense, started to more strategically approaches the green transition of the defense sector. So this is basically the agenda. I would like in the following 10 minutes, I will try to address all that 4 topics, and of course why we started this. I will not go deeper into Green Deal ambitions and implications, because we are all aware of that, but we'll more focus on the energy aspects, and of course in defense, energy aspects in defense, and of course what this Green Deal and green ambitions relates to the sustainable defense in regard to energy. So basically, when I started, if you can see this sentence here, that was my first impression 2 years ago. Also, what anything with the energy efficiency and renewables and environment protection has to do with the defense, and that, as you all can see, after 2 years, I'm totally aware of that. Why are we doing this? So basically, the basic idea why also is, of course, is related to the greening defense, and also in the energy transition with the lowering cost, energy independency, energy resilience, and so on. And especially with the increased need for civil solutions for dual use. In all these topics, also energy related topics and energy efficiency, of course, are mostly related also to the fixed military, fixed and deployable infrastructure, and also in regards to the needs to strengthening international collaboration between civilian stakeholders and defense stakeholders. So that was, of course, the basement for discussion with the Slovenian MOD. How can we strengthen the international collaboration on the topics of energy and environment topics? And some facts about Slovenia. Slovenia is a small country. Basically, in Slovenia, we have export-oriented industry towards other European countries, and Slovenian companies are highly reliable and efficient suppliers and subcontracts on global value chains. And basically, we have also strong collaboration between industry and research technology organization and university. But on the other hand, we do not have any large industrial companies or research technology organizations specialized in defense and security as some other countries. That means that we had to address also civilian partnerships, civilian stakeholders, and knowledge we have on the civilian sector. And the last, but which is really important also, what we have is extensive knowledge and long history of Slovenian governmental support to various collaboration and innovation measures in last 20 years. And of course, that was the really excellent basement and foundation for the discussion about systematic approach to support to the systematic approach how to support Slovenian MOD green energy transition and strengthening international R&D and business collaboration in defense. And the logical, if I go now to the what we do to achieve that, basically the logical answer to the all mentioned was establishment of the Slovenian Energy and Environment Partnership in Defense in 2020, established by Slovenian Ministry of Defense and TECES. And the one and the mainly goal is to have an effective approach towards the integration of Slovenian partners in international defense programs and global value chains. Of course, the basic idea behind was how to support Slovenian Ministry of Defense, Slovenian Armed Forces in joining international defense, and steering and coordinating stakeholders, civilian stakeholders, defense stakeholders to be more effective in collaborative activities between other member states. What experience we usually have from the civilian sector is that usually in regard to the innovation phases of the development of new project, usually we are aware of some dead valleys. And what we wanted to do is how can we minimize that effect in the innovation process. And this is also the reason this picture also presents some, we say it, modified quadruple helix innovation model. Basically, for those who knows that clusters, usually innovation cluster, industrial clusters, usually are based on the creating synergies among universities, companies, government. In that case, we wanted to have also more influence from the final user, consumer, and that means also representative of Slovenian government, and of course also representative of the users in Slovenian army and so on. That means Ministry of Defense. With the special focus how to support that kind of environment ecosystem in defense, and of course to have a comprehensive support to the whole innovation process targeting technology readiness level from the low tiers to the high levels. And of course, not to forget, but as it seems now, it's very, very important now to support the human resource development, to raise their competencies. As we see from previous experience 2 years, there is a need for increase of the knowledge and competencies of all stakeholders in defense, when that relates to the defense and security related activities. Of course, what we started to do is, because we have more than 20 years of experience and knowledge about civilian solutions on the energy related topics, we started to think how can we improve our collaboration also in this matter with having all the knowledge of previous activities. That means we have knowledge about top civilian solutions on the energy related topics, and we have experienced on how to deal with large strategic partnership and projects. We didn't do other civilian partnerships, and we wanted to put all this knowledge also into newly established partnership together with the Slovenian Ministry of Defense. On what experience we started to think about it was to have experience energy sources, conversion, distribution, storage, management, and usage from the whole value chain of the energy. And the second one is also having experience on the smart buildings and on the construction sector, on the development of technology solutions for the energy management, building management, on different technology areas, as you can see here. So that was the basic to think about where we will focus within the Slovenian Energy Environment Partnerships. And those technology areas you can see on this slide. Basically, all technology areas related also to the energy, green energy transition are here. So how we deal it? We established the Slovenian Partnership, and it is cluster-based type organization based on the needs of Slovenian MOD, and of course member, and it's optimized for collaboration with different European member states and NATO alliance. Of course, we want it to be lean, really lean. So basically, it is steered by two coordinator. That means one is from the Ministry of Defense and one from the civilian sector, to be as much lean as possible and flexible. Where our focuses are, of course, in the last, let's say, less than 2 years, we focused on the preparation of technology areas, projects, and project roadmaps in the Energy Environment Working Group. And in last year, Slovenian MOD also, we concluded a research and development feasibility study on ways of developing smart deployable infrastructure. That means on the smart energy efficient deployable camps, to analyze trends, technology, innovation capacities of Slovenian stakeholders, and especially what is the vision, to define the vision and strategy for the next 3 years. How can we address all topics related to the energy and smart camps, and especially with industrial partners and Slovenian research organization together with international partners. So basically, as you can see from this slide, we addresses all topics related to the energy, digitalization of military camps, and we defined missions. We call it missions, where we will put all our efforts, projects together with international partners to address solutions for the civilian use, for the military use, and also for dual use and military use. Okay, as you can see, this is presented for the dual use and also for the military use, but all these solutions can also be applied for the civil sector. Going to finalize my presentation, where we are now. Now we are really in activities strengthening international presence of Slovenian stakeholders with support of the Slovenian MOD. We are deeply involved with other European country stakeholders, civilian stakeholders, to be very active in all energy environment-related topics, also one of the active coordinators within different already open calls. And what we would also like to do is trying to identify the interest to establish EU-based innovation cluster, innovation hub on military or dual-use energy-related energy efficiency. The last slide. We are talking about energy and environment challenging in defense. Why not? That means Slovenia is a small country, flexible, with good connection to the ministry, civilian stakeholders, and with good relations to the other stakeholders from the other countries. And why not? With this, I would like to end my presentation, and thank you for giving me a chance to present our ideas and what are we doing.
Thank you so much for that another rich presentation, and also for showing us the intersection, I think, across different areas of innovation and energy and greening. Also, I must say that the Slovenian presidency of the Council of the EU has also put this question high up on the agenda as well, and it's very clear from the work of various EU institutions as well that this is going to stay. So thanks so much for that overview as well. Let me come now, if I can, to Jean-Philippe Scherer from Airbus, who will round us or close this session before we head into a break and then the round table. Jean-Philippe, I ask you to take the floor and share your views. Thank you.
Yes, bonjour Daniel. Can you hear me well? Daniel, can you hear me well?
Very well, very well. We
Okay,
can hear
super.
you.
Yeah, I see we are a little bit late, so I'll be quick. I don't want to kill your coffee break, and we will have a chance to discuss with my colleague Bertrand de Cordoue just in the roundtable just after. So I'll be very quick. Very happy to have a short exchange with you today about how to better integrate SMEs into the complicated game of European defense initiative, funding initiative. I have some positive message to pass to you. The first one is that Airbus, of course, need SMEs to work with in the frame of European funding affairs. Why we need that? First reason is that we need innovation. And so it has been reminded by many of you. SMEs are a huge source of innovation for Europe. Large company like Airbus, we do innovation, but it's very complementary to work with SMEs because we are not so agile, as you know. And the agility of SMEs is something we want to preserve, and even we want to boost, because we need that for our projects. The complementarity is also because Airbus is an integrator, so we don't do all the pieces of the systems we are proposing to customers, and in that way, we really need to complement our solutions with pieces that clearly European SMEs have. And that's why we integrate a lot of SMEs in our project. I will come to that in the next slide. A good thing for SMEs is that it takes a lot of time to interface with customers, and small structures that don't have always time to do it and to understand it. Airbus is doing that for you. It's very important that we I would say value this time we spend with the customer to you as well, and to explain to you why, what the customer needs, how they see the future, that you can really also position there. So very happy to have discussion with you on that. Paul has very clearly presented the game and EDA as well, and just before about EDIDP and EDF. So I will not come to that again, but Airbus, of course, is looking very closely to the bonuses. We need bonuses to consolidate the funding for our proposal to EDF and EDIDP, and it is very important part of the game. We cannot make it without you because of the very smart rule of the bonuses. And at the end, I'd like also to focus on the long-term partnership. EDF, EDIDP, Horizon, the mini projects that have been presented before are very good opportunities to work together, but we are also looking for long-term partnership. It's not only one system, but we try to identify companies that we can work on several projects. And for many reasons, and one of the reasons that you understand is very complicated for small companies to participate to large projects, and one of the burden is the administrative part the funding from EU is very smart, but it's very hard to capture in terms of effort, because you need to understand position and also to comply with all the administrative procedure. It's quite easy. So it's much better for companies like Airbus to have partners, SMEs that are familiar with the process. If you are not, still we can integrate you, but more as a subcontractor than a partner, and there is different ways to do it. But anyway, we are looking for a long-term partnership. And I think it's what you have to have in mind when you are approaching companies like Airbus. EDF cooperation timeline. I wanted to give you an example, a concrete example of EDF 2021. So I think it's quite complementary to what EDA and the Commission has presented. Just my main message here is that we need to anticipate. So it's too late to create a relation just a few months before a call. And the reason is because a lot of things are getting in place before. So my recommendation to SMEs is to get in touch something like 2 years before I would say the deadline of a call, to make sure that you don't miss any step. This is shown on this diagram. That, for example, on the call 2021, we were in touch with the partners something like 2 years before. To make sure that we can identify, and here you see the different steps. First, there is an initial contact that we are discussing a topic where we can build a partnership together, or when we foresee that we can cooperate. Then the year before the call, we do a kind of confirmation. So it's not many meetings. It could be only 2 or 3 meetings a year, just to make sure that we are converging on a solution. Then just the year of the call will be the teaming. So very important that because we are discussing the work share, we have to position everybody at the right level. And then will be the contract phase and then the execution. So it's a very long story, even for small calls. So a large effort. But again, we cannot make it in only a few months. It requires some anticipation. For example, I would say that today the call 2021, of course, is already ongoing, but the 2022 is almost too late. The partnership are already established. So now we are preparing the call 2023. An example of partnership we have established for the call this year is on the one EDF topic called 2021 called MDOC, Multi-Domain Operation Cloud. So this project is a federation of cloud for European defenses. I will not go into detail for confidentiality, but the idea is to facilitate the exchange of services between the different European forces and between the different, I would say, components of the forces. So Navy, Army, Air Force, Space, Cyber, on the different levels, so strategic, operational, and tactical. And we have created a consortium for that based on 5 core nations. So Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and Sweden that I joined recently. And a multitude of other countries. So we have 20 partners from a lot of different countries. Unfortunately, no Slovenian at the moment. So we will correct that probably next time. Sorry for that. But it's still open. We are still discussing the consortium. And I don't want to be too long that we have this roundtable just after, so I will just finish my call with the point of contact for Airbus. So for EDF, Eno Schumacher is our key account manager. So please contact him first if you want to get in touch with Airbus regarding EDF. Then you see the list of others. I will not describe all the people. Bertrand is with me today and is in the Brussels office in charge of EU and NATO. And I'm personally in charge of future programs. So if you want to talk about the future technical issues or initiatives we have in the area of digital in particular, please contact me. So now, if we have a few minutes for the question, I can answer, or we can do that during the roundtable as you wish, Daniel.
Thank you very, very much, Jean-Philippe. I already see there is a question actually in the chat directed towards you. So I'm not sure if you want 1 or 2 few minutes to answer that, or whether or not you just want to take it in the roundtable. I leave that to you.
We can do that now. I'll try to be fast.
Thank you. Please, Jean-Philippe, the floor is yours.
But I cannot see the question. Can you?
Okay, of course. Sorry. It's in the chat. It says, if I understand well, you build the consortium 1 or 2 years before the call, but since it is not known what the call of 2022 will be, not to speak of the call for 2023, how do you choose your partners on that basis?
It was not easy. Huh? We identified main partners 2 years ago, large partners, and then we identified some gaps, and we gradually went to mid caps, then to SMEs. But I must confess that this time was a little bit late. We got in touch with the SMEs something like 6 months, 8 months before the deadline, the submission. And so it was absolutely not easy. And I would say I would prefer to anticipate a little bit. Huh? So my recommendation is to get in touch with large company in advance and to propose some topics, and then we can prepare the list. Anyway, things will consolidate a few months before the call, as usual, especially for SMEs. Which is, I would say we first try to consolidate between large companies, which is the most complicated game. And then we save, I would say we secure a share for SMEs, something like 1 year before, when we have a quite precise view of what we want to do, how we want to build the work breakdown structure. And then we negotiate with SMEs something like 6 months before the deadline. I hope it answers the question.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Thank you, Jean-Philippe, for that precision, indeed. And what I would like to now do is thank each one of our speakers, I think, for very good overviews of their work, and also for detailing some of the opportunities and some of the challenges. We are a little bit over time in terms of the program, but I must say that the discussions so far have been very rich, and the program indeed foresees a 15-minute break. So what I would recommend that we do as a group is take a break now until 11:30, and then we will start very promptly the roundtable discussion, and we will have the opportunity to get into a lot more details about some of the best practices and also some of the challenges that face SMEs when it comes to some of the funding opportunities that we've seen here. So thank you so much so far for your participation, presence, etc. I see there are still 130 people or so in the room, so that's a good sign. Please take your coffee break, bathroom break, and see you here sharp at 11:30. Leave your cameras off, your microphones on mute, and see you very soon. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We're going to commence the second half of our event today with a roundtable discussion. As I said before the break, the focus will very much be on some of the best practices and challenges facing SMEs, large industry, and member states. I'm very happy again to moderate this session. And what we will try to do, if possible, is have a bit of a facilitated discussion amongst some of the participants here. And then what I would really like, given that many of the questions we will address are directed especially to SMEs, is also to have audience members engage with some of their questions, experiences, and also some of their concerns as well, because I think that will really enliven the debate. Let me just say, as moderator, I'm very happy to call upon some of the key participants here today, and I will list them off as they appear in the program. Then afterwards, I will pose some questions for the roundtable discussion. First, let me welcome Mr. Bertrand de Cordoue, who's the head of EU and NATO public affairs at Airbus. Sir, your name's already been mentioned once or twice today. We're very happy that you can be with us for this discussion. Second on my list is Elko Os, who is the founder and CEO of drone4.eu. Welcome to you as well. We have the return of Jean-Philippe Scherer, who's also the head again of future programs at Airbus. Welcome back, Jean-Philippe. We have also one of the co-organizers and a dear colleague from Slovenia joining us as well, Larisa Pograjc, who is the head of Military Technology Research and Development section at the Ministry of Defense for the Republic of Slovenia. Again, thanks for all your efforts in putting this event together today, and welcome, Larissa. Happy to hear you from you today. We have also another co-organizer and a dear colleague, Drasko Veselinovic, who is the president for the Slovenian Business and Research Association. Again, thanks, Drasko, for all of your efforts in putting this together. And then we have the return as well of three of the speakers that you heard from this morning. Firstly, Matej Gjazar, again, who's the president of the steering committee of the Slovenian Energy and Environment Partnership in Defense. Paul Ancio, who joins us again from DG DEFIS, European Commission. Thanks for being with us, Paul, as well. And last but certainly not least, Pierre Di Torro, who again joins us from the EDA. So I think we have a good group of discussants and facilitators, and maybe let me pick up on some of the themes that I already noticed in the morning presentations. And they really, I think, focus on this question of opportunities and challenges for SMEs. And I think we already heard some positive examples of where SMEs seem to gain those opportunities from EU funding mechanisms. But it's also clear that there are still, and I think we can list them as possibly questions of administrative hurdles or burdens, even the question of time, finances. And I think also what Mr. Denis Rozaj said during his presentation about being out there and being visible in the defense ecosystem. These are some of the key points that we should probably raise. But let me just first come to our participants and see and ask basically a very basic question, which is what are, in your views, some of the key challenges facing SMEs today? I mean, we see that EU institutions are doing quite a lot in terms of trying to facilitate this integration, this cooperation between SMEs and larger players. But what are the challenges still? Even though we have these good web platforms, meetings, etc., what are still the major barriers behind this type of relationship? I open the floor at this stage to any one of our participants. And as I said, we can also hear from some of our broader participants in the roundtable as well. I see that Pierre wants to jump in, if possible, on this. Drasko as well, and I see a hand also from Auke Venema, who joins us from the Netherlands as well. So let's start with Pierre, then I come to Drasko, and then Auke, I come to you.
Many thanks, Daniel. I mean, just to go straight to your question about the potential hurdles, I mean, for SMEs, I mean, of course, any application process has its difficulties. Last but not least, in the proper drafting of the project application. About it, I want to, let's say, share EDA's experience. EDA has directly supported along the years a number of specific projects led or including many SMEs. This was done for the purpose of demonstrating, how it can be done exactly. And also EDA must admit that there was the need to have an external professional support. Then we contracted, experts in application to EU funding. What I may say is that it is not expensive at all compared to the funding you may get in return. The leverage actually was impressive in that sense. Therefore, the hurdles are there, we must admit it, of course, and sometimes it is good to count on experts in this process.
Thank you so much, Pierre. Dreshko, I come to you for your views, please. Please just unmute yourself, Dreshko. You seem to be muted.
Yes, I apologize. Hello to everyone. I would like to take this opportunity also to thank everyone, co-organizers, for helping us putting out this conference. Of course, to EDA, especially Marian Savu, and of course, their CEO to come up here, our secretary, our Ministry of Defense, with its state secretary who showed up in the beginning, and of course, Dr. Pugraitz helping us organizing this event. Okay, and of course, Daniel, thank you for chairing it. Great work so far. Well, regarding SMEs, I sometimes compare it to Horizon. We do a lot of help to different companies within Horizon and within European Innovation Council, which really focuses on SMEs as well. So I can say from my experience that, let's say, especially for some SMEs, it is very difficult to break through, to break through an international scene. So SME cannot cover all functions that are sometimes necessary to succeed. Maybe they can cover some functions to be successful locally, but internationally, European level, or even globally, it's very difficult for them. So they need some professional support, as Mr. Toro pointed out also. And of course, I think EDA and the European Commission is doing great work, helping and improving its work and its help all the time. We can see from one program to another, these things are improving. That goes also for Horizon European Innovation Council, let's say. And of course, they would need some also international professional support. So I think it is very crucial to help them to break through. And once they break through, and of course, then it's much easier for them. Later on, they are successful. They know how to go with it. They know maybe how to find partners. It's very, very crucial for them that as well. So partnership is so crucial. So conferences like this, they help them to get partners, to get also its visibility and so on. So maybe for that much at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dreshko. And I'm looking forward also now to bring in the Dutch R&T Director, Auke Venema. Thanks for joining us today, Auke. I see your hand raised. And happy to give the floor to you. Always a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you very much. And I would also like to start with a compliment for organizing today's event, both the presidency and EDA. This is a very critical topic. Clearly getting a better understanding about what is needed is necessary, and we are progressing, we are going forward, but still a lot needs to be done. Against that backdrop, I would like to start with a remark that applies first and foremost to the ministries of defense. And they are I think most of them are fully aware that the defense market is not a regular market. I sometimes doubt if you can call it a market at all. That being said, I think we have to start looking, at least from the MOD perspective, at the way we work and what we can do to get innovation well, not started, of course, but because innovation is of all times, but under the current circumstances, current challenges, what can we do about it? Against that backdrop, I was very interested in the Slovenian presentation. I recognize a lot of what was said there, and I think this is a very good example of how to proceed. But let's go back to the main challenges, main hurdles from my perspective. I think that this is kicking in an open door, but I think defense planning and procurement, this is a very rigid system, and there's a good reason for that. But nevertheless, it's not improving what in the Netherlands we call short cycle innovation, because we see it as long-term innovation. This is developing new major weapon systems. This takes a long time, although we want to do that faster as well. But of course, introducing civil technology in the military domain, you can do that much faster. And SME play a big role in that respect as well. So we have to look at our systematic approach regarding planning and procurement. What's closely related to that is budget. In the Netherlands, most of the defense investment budget is connected to the major investments, the main capability, so to speak, of the future. So we are now working to introduce also specific solutions to make it easier, not stand behind in the line, and then maybe in 2, 3, 4 years time, you will get money or not. So this is key, I guess. It's about planning, procurement. It's also about budget. What I think is also very important, and against that backdrop, like I said, the Slovenian example was very interesting, because we need to adapt as ministries of defense to make collaboration with SME and other companies more structured, more flexible, and more long term. So in the Netherlands we have innovation centers, military innovation centers, specifically aiming for collaboration with SME. This has been very, very helpful, getting collaboration to a higher level, but also, like I said before, it's also about budget. It's about getting enough money to the innovation center. So I think that's critical as well, getting organized. From my perspective, these are very important elements. What's also critical, yes, it's very good to have these presentations on what kind of help you can get from the EU, but everybody knows this is extremely difficult. Certainly at the level of SME, or just or people within land army or navy, getting all the forms filled in, stuff like that. It's a major effort. It requires capacity and expertise, and I think this is also something that we have to look at very, very critically, because there's a lot of things available at the European level, but getting this working for everybody, that is a main challenge. So I would like to leave it at that, Daniel, for now.
Thanks so much, Alko. I think that was very, very useful, bringing in a kind of governmental perspective on this. And I think you were very, very clear in terms of, I hear that word rigidity again, flexibility, but also I take your point very well on board about the budgetary and financial aspects as well, and how we need to probably think and adapt a bit at the national level about how those defense budgets are put in motion. And thank you very much as well for bringing on board a very specific Dutch example of the innovation centers as well, which I think is very useful. And maybe if we have a bit more time, I'll give you the chance to dig a bit deeper into that as well. So thanks so much. Sticking with a kind of governmental perspective as well, Larissa, I want to bring you in now from Slovenia to also share your views on what you've heard.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you for all the participants and everyone for being today with us. I would like to follow on from my dear friend Auke, the R&D Dutch director. And when talking about perspective of the Ministry of Defense, Actually, a few days ago, we had a discussion with Auke, and we were mentioning the whole ecosystem. And although it is a kind of broad word, but it is absolutely necessary that we establish an ecosystem within the ministries that will be capable to support all the initiatives. And this is quite challenging, especially for the smaller countries, because there are a lot of initiatives, a lot of opportunities, and usually the SMEs are acting faster than the MODs are. That's the fact. And since we are of course, we have a lot of good experiences, but as everyone, we are also learning from our mistakes. And in years since Slovenia got independent, this was exactly 30 years. Actually, we also learned not just the amount of money, but also the more than the amount of money available. We believe that a stable financing is very important. Why? Because if we invest into the lower tier L and later we do not support the development throughout the whole chain, actually we didn't do much. And of course, on top of that, spreading of information and building trust. I cannot stress enough that defense sector is especially a sector where trust is of most importance. And mentioning the examples, of course, our example with associations like the energy, which was presented, is extremely important, because we are not able to communicate with broad number of SMEs, but we have to focus actually on someone who has joined the perspective of SMEs working in a similar field, and actually who has the experiences, maybe also, as mentioned before, from the civilian sector. And in that case, we are able to get all the spin-ins and spin-outs, which are also mostly important. Another thing we have learned lately is that actually launching a pre-studies is really useful, because by launching these studies we gain the information how many SMEs, for example, in Slovenia are dealing with the energy, what they can offer, how they comply to our priorities, and actually how we comply to their vision. So for now, this is from my side. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larissa. That was also a very useful addition as well. I took on board the point about stable funding, which is really, really important, I think. But also you raised this question of information sharing and information exchange, which is perhaps we've not touched on in so much detail today, but I think it's absolutely crucial for what you said about trust, and also about exploring opportunities before heading for projects and programs together. Bertrand, I see your hand is raised, your virtual hand is raised. I want to bring the Airbus perspective in, please.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Good morning to everyone, and thank you once again for organizing this very interesting workshop, and for inviting Airbus, which is not particularly a SME, but who, as my colleague Jean-Philippe Scherer explained, is very interested in SMEs participation into projects for different reasons. I just would like to insist or to highlight on 3 points. The first one is that we have to consider that we are still on a learning curve. We are still in the ramp-up phase of the European Defence Funds, and there is an amount of complexities which have to be understood, mastered, and progressively streamlined. I think this is obviously the aim of the European Commission to progressively access to something which is understandable and shared by everyone. And this is also to say that big companies like Airbus are able, due to their means, but also to their experience with DED, ADP, and the first calls, to share this burden of red tape and administrative complexity. So to make benefit to SMEs of this experience and of this capacity to master the bureaucratic difficulties to address the European Defence Fund. This was my first point. My second point, there again, I'm repeating something which has already been said by several participants, but I think it's particularly important. We are regarding SMEs clearly in a get-to-know exercise, a kind of, I would call it a Tinder exercise. This takes time. This needs investment, and this needs also, as just explained by the R&D directors, to build trust. And this is also why I'm repeating what my colleague said. Getting to know each other to better understand what we are able to do and then to provide to a potential project is something which has to be taken upstream. And this is also why we insist on having the contacts and the exchange of information with SMEs upstream of the calls and not at the last minute when we have to build a project proposal. And the last point, if I may, Daniel, is also to say, because there might be some misunderstanding on that, is that there are SMEs in small EU countries, but there are also SMEs in large EU countries, and there are substantial industrial partners which are not SMEs in small EU countries, and vice versa. So it is also says that this is a topic which has to be addressed on a 27 EU countries basis, and not only make a kind of bijection between small countries, small companies, and big countries, big companies. As Airbus, we have subsidiaries in many EU countries. We are, of course, at most present in 3 large countries, Germany, France, and Spain, but we also are able to raise contacts and to launch activities in smaller EU countries. So it's important to address the topic on this broad multinational basis. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bertrand, for also introducing that additional layer of complexity actually to how we understand the defense industry. I think that was very, very useful indeed. I also liked your your reference to the Tinder of defense innovation, if we could put it this way, about getting to know one another. I think that's very important. And you started off your remarks by also talking about a learning process, given that many of these tools, especially the EDF, are still very young. But you did also raise again the question of red tape and bureaucracy, which tends to be I would say, a theme during our meeting today, which we can come to now. Larissa, I still see your hand raised. Did you want to come back in?
No, sorry,
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So maybe I see Paul's hand raised from the European Commission, and I want to give you the chance, Paul, to reflect on some of the points that have already been raised. But could you maybe also address this point that we've been hearing quite frequently? It's a little bit of a paradox. Huh? On the one hand, EDF is still very, very young as a tool. We've already heard this morning the steps that have been taken by European Commission and EDA to facilitate and make that process a bit easier. But the impression we get from the floor is still that it might be perceived as being admin heavy. So how do you also address that in your remarks as well? Please, Paul, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Indeed, I first wanted to express that I share many of the thoughts and views of the previous speakers. I think if we look at SMEs in Europe, SMEs in general, the challenges are well known. I think sometimes these challenges are compounded or even more difficult for SMEs that want to be active on the defense markets. If you take, for example, the access to finance, it's a concern of most SMEs in the area of defense, it can be more complex, even if you see that some of the banks are quite reluctant to provide financing when they hear the company is proposing activities or projects in the area of defense. Another area is the one that was also mentioned already, the access to information, the access to get information on procurement opportunities in other member states. It can even already be, let's say, an obstacle when you see as a small company that information very often is published in the local language, for example. So all these kinds of elements make it sometimes difficult for the defense SMEs to find business opportunities in other countries. I just wanted to balance that out, maybe with a positive example, at least when we noticed when the COVID crisis broke out last year, that it had a heavy impact on SMEs throughout Europe, and also SMEs that were into defense did not escape from that. But I got many SMEs providing feedback saying that, well, at least the defense part of their business was much more stable during that part of the crisis than their civil part of the business. So sometimes there can be quite a stabilizing effect as well if you have defense activities and defense sales in your portfolio, to just highlight at least a positive element. To come back on your question, Daniel, indeed, as you say, the EDF is quite young. Yes, we do have the precursor programs that already provided us with some interesting lessons, but as you know, the EDF calls have just been launched and have not been closed yet. But there is a constant drive to make life as easy as possible, bearing in mind that procedures will have to be followed in any case. An example of that is the constant revisions of the frequently asked questions, for example. But we're, of course, thinking constantly about how can we make life easier for applicants. And that's not so straightforward, because especially in an area of defense, you have to take different elements into consideration, including, of course, security and security of information. I do hope, though, that the launch of the network of national focal points will be of assistance, will be of help to potential stakeholders, that they can turn to these national focal points, get more information on the procedures that need to be followed, get some help on what do I need to do at a national level, maybe, in order to be able to take part in the EDF projects and so on. So I think it's an important first step in order to meet exactly that challenge that you've highlighted, Daniel.
Thanks so much, Paul, for being very clear on that as well. And also thank you for saying, I noted it down, which is a good expression, I think, which was a constant drive to make life easier, which is a very, very important departure point, I would say. I see there is the hand raised by Jean-Philippe from Airbus. Also, Pierre, did you raise your hand as well, your real life hand, not your virtual hand, to jump in? I'm also happy to give you the floor, but let's hear from Jean-Philippe first.
Merci, Daniel. Yeah, I'd like to come back on the relation between large companies and SMEs. I will be also positive. As Paul said, we see some difficulties, but we have a huge interest to work together. I see it as a triple win situation between institutions, large companies, and SMEs. Everybody at the end with this kind of initiative like EDF should be very happy at the of the results. The member state will and the institution will get more geo return, more innovation, more sovereignty probably in the defense solution. Large company will it's a boost for large company as well, and also an invitation to cooperation in Europe. And for SMEs, this is the opportunity to jump into large boats. That's with a structure and with also incentive regarding the bonuses. So I see it as a very positive situation. On the administrative part, there was a lot of comment already. I will also be positive in the way that yes, it's complicated, but we are together. And as soon as we are teaming in EDF projects, for example, large companies are helping small companies to understand how it works and to comply with the rules as well, and to be on time to deliver documents, which is sometimes complicated. And this is exactly what we did on the project I have presented, called MDoc, Multi-Domain Operation Cloud. We are driving SMEs, helping, supporting, explaining what are the rules and what are the documents, how to get there, to facilitate. Another difficulty that we didn't mention, and sorry that I didn't answer the question. I didn't have, I was not seeing the chat, so I misunderstood the question. About the game, there is a political game around EDF, and I would like to congratulate member states in Slovenia today that is organizing this meeting, because they are really struggling to make it work at the end. It's not easy to create cooperation in Europe on such sensitive question as defense. And they put a lot of effort in advance to select, to identify mature projects. This is a complicated game at European level, but it works. We saw that on MDoc and many other projects that if you push good ideas, member states are really able to structure a small group, large group of member states to make it happen and to make it in the program. So yes, the programs are published only 1 year before the call, before the submission, but there is a lot of work at early stage for all the projects. And this is where also large company can support SMEs, because we are part of this game. We are pushing high-level requirements. So we have first phase, as I mentioned, we are identifying what could be relevant topics for Europe and member states, for the customers. We're lobbying a lot to make this project happen. And we are pushing technical documents to explain what could be the solutions, what could be the projects. So we do that with the formal process of the high-level requirements. And at the end, also, the member states are helping large companies and SMEs, as Slovenia is doing today, to get in touch, to make sure that we don't miss anybody in the team. And large companies here are really playing, I would say, a consolidation role and Airbus in particular on some projects to consolidate the team, including SMEs from early stage. So again, very important that the SMEs, even without knowing the program in advance, get in touch with large companies, proposing ideas, and try to identify where the project can rise and be pushed by large companies. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. I want to bring Pierre Di Toro from the EDA in as well, but maybe I want to pose a question, especially to Jean-Philippe and Bertrand, because we heard from some of the representatives from member states and governments that they found there was a certain degree of rigidity in the way they function. And from what I just heard from the representatives from Airbus, there is an appetite also on your side to shake up maybe some of the rigidity that may have been found in existing supply chains. So it would be very interesting later on also to know from your perspective, why is it that you're so keen also to bring on board SMEs that may not be already part of larger supply chains? It would be nice for you to, I think, emphasize that point for us and some of the ingredients that you look for as a large defense player when trying to team up with SMEs. But before that, I want to come to Pierre from the EDA to also share his reflections, please.
No, thank you, Daniel, once again. I mean, first of all, I don't want to, overtake your role as moderator, and you will drive also the conclusions here. But I mean, I guess we can all agree that, as you just mentioned, to use your wordings, that to team up with someone, else is relevant and is clearly, mentioned under different wording by many, of course, interventions that we are having here. Now, I want just to bring in a couple of concrete examples in EDA in order to team up. For example, recently, we have just launched the new incubation forum for circular economy in European defense. okay? Then, as you can see, we are under the mainstream of the EU Green Deal, of course, within the climate change defense roadmaps that was put forward last year. And we are offering a concrete platform for SMEs in order to meet with the other companies, ministries of defense, other relevant partners to incubate, because it's a very concrete endeavor, okay, to incubate collaborative and transnational projects. It's just, I mean, you see, a key example when we may have, I mean, fora that are not only, of course, I mean, effectively discussing, sharing experience, but also clearly aimed at incubating concrete projects. Of course, another option is, I mean, to use the B2B platform that we have in EDA. But about this discussion, I mean, also my colleague Marian Savu will come back later on during his presentation, and I don't want to take, I mean, more time to this very interesting discussion. And then back to you, Daniel.
Thanks so much, Pierre, for that. And also just to underline the fact that indeed the EDA is extremely proactive and very active on this front, especially on climate and defense. And personally, having been involved in some of your meetings in the consultation forum, etc., it's been very rich indeed to what you said, aim towards that teaming up and exchange. On that question that I raised beforehand to our colleagues from Airbus, I would just like to give you a few seconds to elaborate how you see the SME landscape in Europe, and why is it attractive for you as a large firm to look out to new SMEs beyond the established supply chains? Once we hear from you, then I have another question that I would like to raise about defense clusters, but maybe I'm not sure whether it's Bertrand or Jean-Philippe who wants to take the floor, but happy to hear your views on this.
Maybe Bertrand, I can start if you want to complement. Yeah, I see the question on the chat now about the supply chain. It's not easy for SMEs to survive in the big game. Besides the large companies, and in particular on the supply chain, and this is valid for other topics as well. I think first EDF is not directly. It's paving the way to solutions, but we are not delivering, and we are preparing. There is two windows. I think it was mentioned before. There is a research window and a capability window, and both windows are building the solution and not delivering. So I would say that in this phase, we are building the solution, and we do not. I would say we accommodate a room to SMEs. But there is no, I would say, competition or particular pressure in this phase. So please don't consider EDF or EDIDP or any Horizon project as a competition inside the team. And we are really building solutions. Each company is protected by IPRs, and EU is respecting a lot the rights for the companies. And so each company is bringing background, is building foreground, and everybody is respected there. And in the final solution, of course, I don't want to anticipate too much on what will be the result in 5 years after EDF, but I'm quite optimistic that SMEs that would participate to the building of the solution will have a comfortable place at the room at the end, because they will have built credit. They will have built confidence with large companies. And again, large companies has no intent to capture or to eject SMEs after this building phase. We will need all the partners to be part of the solution and deliver what they have built during the project. So I would not compare this EDF building phase as any big solution, where sometimes we see SMEs that are really crunched by large companies. I would say this is the opposite, the opportunity for small companies to build confidence, trust, and credibility and visibility that will help them to have a solid position in the solution at the end. Well, I don't know if Bertrand, you want to complement that?
Just one word to meet Daniel's question also, to say that for us the European Defence Fund is a fantastic opportunity to broaden our supply base, to discover new potential partners, because either we already have a single source which is performant, but you never know what will happen, and it's also a way to reintroduce some competition for us. And there again, if we don't have already someone working on a specific topic, it's a fantastic opportunity to discover in another EU country a small company who is able to provide what we are looking for, or even to provide new ideas to develop projects. So therefore, there again, this is opening the game, and this is more than welcome, and this is helping a lot for us.
Thank you for that precision, both from Bertrand and Jean-Philippe. Thanks so much for answering that question very directly. Now, I also see that in the chat, we have half comments, half questions. Maybe in order to make this a bit more of a humane experience, I would like to invite any of those who have written in the chat, if they would like to pose their questions or comments directly to some of the roundtable speakers, please do so. Just raise your hand if you want to, and I will bring you in. If not, maybe some of the roundtable participants will answer directly, but I would like to come back to this point on defense industry clusters, and I think also Auke Venema referred to them as innovation centers, which I also took note of. What is the feeling generally amongst participants of the role of defense clusters at maybe the national or regional levels? I mean, how do they help stimulate SME participation? How do they address some of the challenges that we've already heard of today? So the administrative burden, the issue of maybe a lack or a need of information exchange, the question of teaming up. I mean, what is the experience in the room of defense clusters? How can they be helpful? And I open this floor not just to national or regional expertise and perspectives, but also from our friends from the EU institutions as well, who have their hands also in this business. So let me see who would like to come in on this question of innovation centers or defense clusters. And also, Auke, if you'd like to come back in on that and dig a bit deeper in the Dutch experience, that would also be very helpful. But I leave the floor open. Okay, Auke, I see your hand has gone up. Please take the floor and share your views with us.
Yes, of course, I don't want to monopolize this discussion, but you asked me to dig a little bit deeper, and of course, I don't mind doing it at all. On the contrary, actually, if you talk about the Dutch experience, if I may speak in that respect, it is critical to establish structural relationships with SME. And you can't do that at the individual level because you can't just say to 20, 30 people, well, you pick up the phone for every SME that calls. So you have to build ecosystems or whatever you want to call them around specific themes. For instance, if you talk about logistics, we have an ecosystem that has been developed, is still under further development. This brings together people from Land Army, also brings in people from our RTO, our Research and Technology Institutes. But first and foremost, it also brings interested private parties to the table, and a lot of them are SME. As some people may be aware, logistics, the Netherlands is very good at logistics. our position in the coast, Central Europe, you may understand that. So there's a lot of expertise, especially in the private sector. And the MOD is very much aware that if we want to innovate and improve our act, so to speak, we have to look at the private sector. But you have to organize this in a structured manner. So we have what we have developed is a group of private and public partners, also regional companies that are owned by the provinces, so that they're public enterprises, so to speak. And what we do is, from the MOD perspective, we share our plans. And of course, these are not finalized plans, because if you talk about innovation, you aim for open innovation. That may be difficult in a defense environment, but nevertheless, we try to do that, especially in an area like logistics. So you start a discussion and you keep engaging with each other. For instance, we will be building new logistics centers in a couple of years' time. So I think this is the way forward, getting this structured approach. And then, of course, from my perspective, that is the only way forward. If you talk about these kinds of initiatives in SME, we have to share our ideas with them, our questions, our plans. And this is the only way to get it in motion. And of course, like I said before, developing main weapon systems, that's an altogether different game. Although that being said, of course, the OOMs, so to speak, are critical to engage SME and every other small entity that needs to be involved. So I very much encourage that as well. I think I've dug deeper enough for now, Daniel.
Yeah, no, that was really excellent, Auke. And in fact, we don't have much time left, but you did raise a point in your in digging deeper, which I think merits a bit more of a discussion or reflection. And that is also the relationship between, if we can even class them as such, defense SMEs and civilian SMEs, and how the needs and perspectives of different types of companies in supply chains and innovation, how they're brought in eventually as well. Given that, of course, we're in an era where we keep on hearing that innovation maybe is not in the defense sector, which I personally disagree with, but increasingly comes from the civilian side. So thanks for also raising that. Now, I see the hand is raised by Paul from the Commission, and then we have another hand raised by Mattia as well. So Paul, let me bring you in first.
Thank you, Daniel. Indeed, on the point of clusters, I want to say that industry clusters in general, but definitely also defense-related clusters, they can really provide a lot of benefits, I think, to companies and SMEs in that respect, because it allows companies to join forces and even sometimes get access to shared facilities, and it can bring them to cooperate more among themselves. And you see that, for example, also defense industry clusters, they have been organizing missions to other countries with our companies to meet with companies in those countries, even primes, opening up new business opportunities. But there is one point I would like to stress here, and it builds a bit on your previous remark about connection between civil SMEs and defense players in that respect. I think one element which is important as well is that there are sometimes also possibilities for defense industry clusters to cooperate with other clusters in Europe, and those do not necessarily need to be defense related. It's an interesting cross-fertilization, and it brings into play other types of funding. EDF is very important, but don't forget about other possibilities like the COSME program or even the cohesion funds. And the example I want to give is the Cluster Go International call under COSME that led very recently to the funding of 2 particular partnerships in the area of defense clusters in that respect. One is called EU Alliance, and they are working on advanced materials and connectivity for defense. That's bringing 6 clusters together. And the other one is EU CATS for Dual Use 2.0, which is bringing 5 clusters together. So just to give you an example of that, and to mention, for example, the recent Euroclusters call, which also had a kind of ambition of bringing clusters from different ecosystems together, including the defense ecosystem. So this is a point I want to highlight that can also be indirectly then, of course, beneficial for all the SMEs that belong to these clusters.
Thanks so much for that, Paul. That was really great addition, especially on that question of the civil defense cross-fertilization. Thanks so much for that. Now, Mathieu, I want to bring you in, please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for giving me a word. Some my remarks also regarding clusters. As coming from a cluster, innovation cluster for 20 years, basically we have a lot of deep experience and deep knowledge about different solutions on the civilian sector. Of course, on topics clusters are established, but in regard to the defense topics, from Slovenian side, as presented before from my presentation, we are quite new to that sector, to be honest, and we started to be more active in this 2 years ago, and that means basically I think that cluster can really have huge impact on increasing and encouraging collaboration between different stakeholders, especially usually what they do also in the civilian sector between companies and also research organizations. But in regard to defense topics, of course, with the close connection and collaboration with the MODs in each countries, and of course, in strengthening collaboration with other similar partnership or that kind of entities. For example, what we are doing right now, to be honest, I'm also aware of all supporting mechanism from European Commission in regard to COSME cluster collaboration. We are also trying to achieve some partnership, but to be honest, I think that the most added value of the clusters, which has a lot of information from different stakeholders, that they can systematically approach to different topics they would like to have in their countries. And that I think that the strongest added value, because I see from the question in the chat that the question was how can SME from one country also come together with other countries. It's difficult if you are not on the same my opinion, it's difficult if you are not on the same, let's say, industrial level or on the topic that you already know each other. I think that clusters can help with this because their approach is to have huge knowledge on what is doing, what companies are doing, what RTOs are doing, and what are capabilities and capability of the stakeholders from each one country. So basically, I strongly believe in cluster because I'm already doing this for more than 25 years. But to be honest, I would also like to know what one of your question was, what is other opinion. For example, representative from the ministry or from the European Commission, or at least somebody who has some benefits from that. It might also be, I don't know if some Slovenian representatives from the Slovenian MOD are still in the chat, but it might be also useful that representatives of the Slovenian ministry also present their feeling about cluster support.
Thanks so much, Mathieu, for that. And I'm not sure, Larissa, if you will want to come in on that question. Your hand has gone up. Drasko, if you would allow me to, I will bring Larissa in first and then come to you. Please, Larissa.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, of course, Matej, it's been really helpful for us to have a cluster. As I said before, it's almost impossible to share information to each individual SME and to expect to interfere and to be heard by them and to hear them as well. So I think this cooperation so far has proven in that case of energy extremely useful for us as well. And also mentioning spreading information. For us, it is much easier to spread information to a cluster and be sure that all the relevant stakeholders will also get to it.
Thanks so much for that, Larissa. That's very good. And now, Drasko, I bring you in.
Yeah, the quick one. Thank you for the floor. Not much to add regarding the clusters. I think a lot has been said and not really anything controversial, really. I think one could agree with everything what was said about the clusters, more or less, really. We are quite new in ENDR that Paul very nicely described a little bit in his presentation. And we expect also quite a lot from ENDR, which will probably give us some access to international, scene of different defense clusters. So, that's also one of the, I would say, tools that, let's say, Slovenian defense cluster can use. And of course, on behalf of them, we will use it in and spread the information and try to do something concrete on that behalf. Just that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Drasko. And Paul, I'm not sure if you wanted the last word or a quick response to that point raised at the end about the NDR, or not?
Well, very briefly in that case, yes, indeed. And I hope that our next meeting, our annual meeting with all the NDR members, we will provide more clarity on how you can indeed work with us and how we can support you. Yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Paul. I think we will bring the roundtable discussion to a close now. I think that was about 1 hour of discussion, but I found that very rich indeed. I think some of the themes that came to my mind was EDF is still relatively young. So that means that there is a question of, first of all, information gathering, use of information. That is very, very important. We also heard, of course, the necessity to maybe keep an eye on administrative burdens and hurdles, which is also an important feature here. But I guess one of the key points as well is this question of getting to know one another and exchange between different SMEs and partners. That seems to me that will take a lot of time. It seems already that the initiatives that Commission and EDA are launching will help facilitate that a bit. But it's like all social and political processes. It takes a bit of time to get to know one another, but at least we have, I guess, the right mindset in place, which is already a good step forward. So I want to thank all of the participants who shared their views with us today in this roundtable. I think that was very, very rich. Thanks also for all of the points and questions raised from the audience, the broader audience. I see that there was a continued lively debate in the chat. Maybe as a word of recommendation to the organizers, you may want to take a copy of the chat discussion to have a reflection of those points and some of the web links that were shared by colleagues. Thanks for doing that. And now I would like to, if possible, hand over to another colleague from the European Defence Agency, Marion Savu. Your name has been mentioned a few times already through the course of today, so very happy that I don't have to do such a very large introduction for you, Marion. You're very well known to many of us, I think, but you will speak now for the next few minutes on networking in practice, and in particular, you'll share some of the EDA's experiences on this live demo for the EDA B2B platform, which I think will also be very useful and a good way of rounding off our discussion today. So without any further hesitation or delay, please, Marion, I give you the floor and looking forward to hearing from you.
Many thanks, Daniel. So I hope that you can hear me and clear and loud. Okay, thanks for confirmation. So good afternoon, everyone. We have been delighted from the beginning to support this event organized in coordination and very good cooperation with our colleagues from Slovenia. Thanks to Drasko and also Larisa for organizing such an interesting debate. And I just noticed that I had a lot of interesting discussions that as I worked for years on SMEs, so I had also something to say. Especially when you talk on SMEs and the difficulties they face to access defense procurement, defense market, defense supply chain, finance, and R&D and innovation. So many times we heard from our studies or direct engagement with SMEs and the industry that maybe one of the most difficulty is that to get in contact, to have the first client in defense. So this is apart from the access to finance. So I think when you get this, you are already on the market. And you know that here we face a lot of difficulties also due to the certification, standardization issues that probably also companies like Airbus or big large company needs to impose and in the process. So as I say that we try to, apart from access to share more, to improve the information sharing, we try also to look for this dimension to enhance the networking between different companies from large to small. And we try, because in EDA we are a small agency, and we always try to put ourselves in SMEs shoes and in industry shoes to create a kind of smart and simple tool to support this networking. And this is what I will try to provide today. So the tool, I will now share my screen, and I hope it will work. Yesterday I tested and it was fine. So you should see now if I'm not, you can see the website, the EDA website. Could you confirm?
Yeah, yes, I can confirm, Marion. It's very clear.
Okay, perfect. So we are in the same page as Pierre mentioned before. And if you want to go to the EDA B2B platform, you have many options, even to Google it or just to go on EDA. We have an industry engagement page. And here, if you click on this, you can have two ways to go. It's either a quick here, or you can go directly to the B2B platform. And here you are. So the platform is a closed one. It's a platform for defense-related stakeholders, for industry, research, technology organizations, and also universities and associations, including here the clusters that you already mentioned. So you go, this is the homepage, and it requires registration. Then here you can find also a video tutorial in order to get in 1 minute and 30 seconds about some additional information. And there is also a fact sheet here that you can see that how this platform works. So if you request registration, you will go to this page where you have to fill very simple information about your profile. So you have to put a password, your name, organization, a short description of the organization. This will facilitate us to give you access because, as I said, it's a closed one, and we have sorry, a dedicated access policy to access the platform. And you should also indicate the website if you are part of National Defense Industry Association. If you are industry, you can also indicate if you are large, mid-cap, or SME, and the country and city. So this is everything you have to fill in, and then you have to request the registration. Then this comes to us. We check it based on the access policy that is written also on the bottom of the page here. So you can also read it and see that if you are fine, if you are in line with this. And after we confirm, you will receive we receive an email, a link, and then we go to. So you will, after you receive the confirmation, you should have access to the platform. So this is the platform where you can be in after, as I said, the confirmation. And just to tell you that we have, for the time being, more than 500 in the platform, from large, as I said, to small. So we have more than 200 SMEs here. And it's also important to note that due to this defense-related aspect, we also can create a kind of anonymous approach. So if you want to just publish your request and without being seen that who you are, and just to put I'm looking for a partner for this idea, you can also do it. So just on this homepage, so here are the requests for partnership that are already published. So, and in the bottom, we have also some links to the identity funding that was presented by my colleague before, to the fact sheet. And now just to show you, after you are here, what you should do, because it's not enough to be a member of the platform. The idea is to use it. And you have two possibilities. One, to publish a request for partner if you want to look for a partner in EU member states, and including we have also access here for the countries that we have administrative arrangement with them as CDA, so it's Norway and Switzerland. And then you should publish the request here. And the second option you have is to reply to this request. But I will show you how simple it is if you have a need for a partnership, just how to use it. It's a very short questionnaire where you have to indicate which is the title of your request, the short overview of it, the deadline until your project accepts offers for partnership from other companies. You have a short, a simple taxonomy on the 5 main areas and a bit more detailed one, including the platforms, equipment, services, and others. Then you should also indicate what type of opportunities for this partnership. For example, if you look for, if you saw a call on EDF, for example, you can indicate it. If you are looking for a partner for a contract that you look for a subcontractor, you can also use it. If you want to find a partner in a country that in a member state that you find an opportunity, a business opportunities, and you don't have an interest there because it's quite complicated sometimes during the language barrier to penetrate that market, you can also use it. So there are many possibilities, or even if you have just a simple idea that you look for a partner, you can also use this tool. And you should indicate shortly the project description, and then the most important is to indicate which is the profile of the partner that you are looking for, and indicating also shortly which are the skills and expertise that you look for, and also some industrial and R&D capacity and resources. Then what you can do also is if you look for a specific partner in one member state, you can also select it. If you want, it's multi-choice, or if you want to select all EU member states, you can also select all from here, and then it's up to you, depends on the business that you want to look for. Then the type of partner envisaged. If you look for an SME, for example, you have to select industry, and you will go to you can select between large, mid caps, and SME. If you want to find a research technology organization, you can also. It's also multi-choice, so you can opt of all. So as I said, if you put industry, you have to select. You can put even large and SME or all categories. And if you look only for an SME, you can keep this one only. Then, as I said at the beginning, we offer this possibility to be anonymous. So you can select here if you want to be private. So your website and the name of the organization will not appear in the request for partnership. So you have to select one of them, and then it's the final data protection paragraph that you have to accept in order to go ahead, and then you just submit this to us, and we analyze. But analyzing what means, we are looking if it is in the line with the platform. I mean, it is not just a promotional request, and it's a real request for partnership. And we also make some correction, some typo. And then if everything is fine, your request for partnership will go, as I said, here in one of these. And in addition to that, as soon as we have a request for partnership here, we send an alert email to all the members in the platform. So as I said, we have more than 500, and still about some tens in the pending mode, because as I said, we are analyzing on case-by-case basis the each company. And if you go to, for example, after you put the request for partnership, you have, this is what will appear if you click on it. So description of the project, the partner profile that it was required, and also here it takes a bit of a few seconds to see also the information that you put in the system about your organization. So this is what all the members can see. And then if you are a member, you read it, and then you have two options. You are not, you cannot comply with this type of maybe the taxonomy or whatever, and you can reply to the partner search if you are if you consider that it's interesting for you. And of course, this is performed in a kind of mirror. Then just reply to partner search. It's very, very simple. You just express your interest for this request, and then you have to respond to the main topics that were required in order to demonstrate that you have some the related skills and expertise, and also the capacity, the industrial and R&D capacity to work with that partner to respond to the request to the partner. Then here, practically, because you are already registered, you don't need to fill in this. So this will appear automatically, all these details about first organization and name, and which are mandatory for the registration. And then you just need to accept, just to make sure that this is correct, and then to submit. And this will go directly to the one who was looking for partners. So we as EDA, we just put at the disposal of the members this platform. We are not intervening. So it's just to facilitate this potential engagement. So now, as I said from the beginning, this is just a platform. We have many platforms in place at European level, and not only, where industry can use and find partners. We have exhibitions, we have also B2B events. So this is on top of that. So it's something that in-house, it was developed in-house by EDA, so together with my colleague support from IT. And it was also a question if we can also add here the database of the members. So we received this and we are still analyzing, because at the beginning it was we wanted to create something like we have an invisible person there, and only the request for partnership is visible by others. If we also will extend this idea to have a database, it can also help. There are advantages and disadvantages, so we are still analyzing the potential of such a database. So as I said, this platform can benefit all players, from large to SMEs. Even an SME can look for a small another SME in order to comply to some requests for networking. They found, for example, now in one of the EU initiatives where the networking, cross-border networking or partnership is a precondition. Or by the large companies when they are looking for some innovative SMEs and companies. So my advice to the audience today, and especially to industry from large to small, is first to register there, and the second, which in my opinion is more important, is to use it. And even for a company like, and we have Airbus here, I mean, it's good to test it, to see and to provide us the feedback as well, in order also to improve the tool, to make it more practical and more efficient. And the same for SMEs, that if they look also, it's simple, it's not a complicated tool, just to register and then to apply and to use it, and to see which will be the reply. We have good feedback from the ones that apply already. So we noticed that they receive quite many replies to their request for partnership. So the idea is to use it. So with this, I concluded my presentation. I hope it was useful for you. And as I said, for any question, I can get even now, or I have my email, so you can also address me directly in order to provide further information. So many thanks for this, and the floor or the screen back to you, Daniel.
Thanks so much, Marianne. That was really great. And I must say that I really appreciate these live demonstrations of these tools, because if you're blind going into them without any demonstration whatsoever, I can imagine there would be some questions, but that was very, very clearly articulated, and thanks so much for that. Just to be clear that this is not specifically designed for any particular EU program. This is simply about addressing what we were discussing. Information exchange, finding partners a bit more broadly. So it's, I would say, an excellent tool that you should all definitely use. I just underline what Marianne said. Sign up and use it. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of our discussions today. Let me take this opportunity to first thank everyone who attended, the 100+ people who attended today, for lively engagement, for sharing your views, also for being very active in the chat discussion. I also want to thank each one of our speakers, who I think you will all agree have shared their time with us and also their expertise. And I personally found them extremely useful presentations. I take a lot away from what they said. So thank you to each one of our speakers. Thank you to those who were involved in the roundtable discussion, which I think was also very rich. Thank you to those who came prepared with the live demonstrations of the various platforms, very useful. And again, a big thank you overall. Let me end by also thanking the organizers of this event, in particular the Slovenian Business and Research Association, the Slovenian Ministry of Defense, and the European Defense Agency. In particular, I would like to salute the colleagues from the EDA, Larissa in particular from the Ministry of Defense in Slovenia, and Draško as well from the SBRA, for putting together such an excellent debate. And I'm sure the conversations will continue, but ahead of us, we don't have innovation, we have lunch. So I wish everybody a very, very good lunch, very good continuation of discussions, and look forward to seeing you in future events. Thanks once again for joining us, and goodbye.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot to everybody, also participants, for coming. Great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.